Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Device Diaries, where we navigate the day in the life of a med device rep. Oh my gosh, you guys, I cannot believe we're in episode 30. All right. I'm like so flattered to be with you guys. And I have a very, very special, exciting news for you. You're welcome. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I know I've recorded my first episode last week. Thank you for all of you guys who subscribed and listened to it. I really appreciate all the love. So then, because Guide is feeling very generous today, I feel like I need to give you guys an extra love because you've been following and you've been downloading all of my episodes. So today is episode 30 that I titled Strategic Sales Partnerships, How to Land the Right Fit for Success. And I have I wouldn't even say guess. Okay. So I've decided for 2025, Gaida is going to have a co-host. All right. And not only that this person is very skilled at what she does and very successful at what she does, she's also my best friend. And without further ado, and you've heard her before, I've had her as a guest before, and our episode actually did really, really well. Without further ado, I want to reintroduce to you Lori Jolley. I can't even say your last name. Lori Jolley. What's up, girl?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much. What an honor to be your co-host. This is so exciting. I'm really thrilled to be here. I know Gaida and I are best friends. We are like the yin to each other's yang. If you could get more opposite in life, it's us. However, we really connect on the really important things, and especially our careers and growing our careers through med device.
Exactly. And you know what's really, really cool, you guys? And this is why I'm so excited about this, because as much as I like, to record episodes on my own, to really for you guys to get to know me, I don't like to listen to myself talk. Okay. That's just the real deal.
I do.
I like to she does. See, yin and yang. I like it to be very conversationalist. That's why I invited so many guests. I like it to be very organic. So, what better way to make it organic is bring your best friend with you. And I can't tell you guys the times that I talk to Lori, it's all about like business planning, what's the future, it's all about pipelining, everything that we're going to talk about in sales. So, Lori, I want you to take the time to really reintroduce yourself and let our viewers know, our listeners know who Lori is.
Okay, great. Well, so I feel like I'm in the candy shop of my career right now. Right now, I am selling laser devices with Candela Medicals or energy based devices, which is anywhere from our Peak Away, our Matrix, Nautilus, and what put us on the map is the GMP for laser hair removal. And I kind of think we're considered in the capital sales device, meaning that we are selling devices that are above $100,000. And that takes a little bit more of a skill set to be able to talk to buyers and decision makers to have a real flow to the process of sales, because that can be difficult if you don't have control of the process in that. And what I like to say is, it was said to us last year, is that we are in the NFL of the leagues of sales. And I truly believe that, because it is definitely, it can be a grind, or if you want to say that you're wired a little bit differently, which I think I'm wired a little bit differently with a mindset, and everything I look through the lens of margins, or how could I build that business, or how could I scale that business? And so my mind is constantly in growth mode, no matter what it's doing. And so my whole career has been in dermatology of sales of some sort. So I graduated from Weber State University in professional sales almost 25 years ago. And ever since then, I have been either in Phoenix or in Utah and covered various states. At one time, I covered 11 states with deep path and dermatopathology, which actually gave me a really great background to cover a lot of different regions and have to acclimate to different buyers. So it's actually been a lot of fun, because I feel like I have all of these friends across the US from a career that I absolutely love.
I love that. I love that introduction. And you guys, you're gonna get to know her more because she's gonna be a part of this gang forever. All right. And today I titled this episode obviously strategic sales partnerships. I mean, strategically, I titled it that way because I want you to guys understand what partnership is. And for me, when I first started the Device Diaries, I was like, I'm gonna invite all these people in, and then year 2025 happened. Actually, end of 2024, I had this kind of shift in mindset of like, okay, I want to bring on somebody that's very special to me, okay? Because I want to bring on someone that actually stimulates my mind. If you guys don't know Gaida is all about, I mean, it sucks for people sometimes because literally when I meet someone, I literally would ask them, hey, like talk to me about business, talk to me about what you do. And then it turns into something very serious in a way, but I do that for a reason because I really, for me to get stimulated my mind, we're in sales, we're in a type of sale that's very high ticketed, to where not only even about the money, but it's also about like what we do. And for me, I'm very passionate about what I do because of the people that I help, because of the patients that I help, because of the people that I serve. Okay. And when we go back to the title of this episode, Strategic Sales Partnership, I found my perfect partner because her and I talk every day as far as
We
like
do.
what we do, how do you do this, how do you do this, I mean, what is it in your in your business. It doesn't matter what kind of devices you sell, or what type of devices, or even which type of medical sales, because it's so different. If you guys don't know what that is, do your research. I always recommend you do. I've interviewed so many people in different divisions, different types of selling, so please go back to the previous episode so you can learn about it. But what's important about partnership is this: it's when you build a partnership with someone, it's forever bonded. That
Sure.
person's going to drive you, that person's going to help you succeed, that person is going to sell for you. So let's talk about that for a second, Lori. So
Yeah.
if you can, let's start with, you're coming into a new account,
Hmm.
meaning like I call it the virgin account. They don't know you, right? You don't you know them, you've done enough research, but how do you finesse to slowly kind of build that relationship which equates into partnership?
Sure. So I think there has to be that something that I think that takes practice and I think takes time, and something that I've come to really own in my own career is to be authentic. Honestly, just being myself and really acknowledging everybody in the sales process, which is everybody in that office, because they have a role in the office and we know that they have a role. It's kind of funny because I think we think that we need a strategy to get by the gatekeeper, and we already know that their job is to keep us out of the back. We know that, right? And they know we come with an
Mhm.
infamous tag on there. Like my favorite, it's very offensive, I must say, but
Say
it says, "What's the quickest way to get rid of a sales rep? Sign their agreement." Are you kidding me? Absolutely not. Because I honestly, like when I go into an account, a virgin account, if you will,
Mhm.
truly my mindset is I want to be your friend,
Mhm.
and not a friend in like, I mean, you can be. That's one thing that I have found that is a little bit of a challenge for me, is that at the end of the day, it truly is business relationships. And so, like, but first and foremost, get to know that gatekeeper, get to know the receptionist. Like, and I really just let my armor down and just say, I know, like, I'm never going to get past you. You must be super good at your job. So, what
Mhm.
makes you so good at your job? And just build a rapport and honestly bring them some sort of how do I buy you? How do I buy you to get past that? Because like they know, like, if they're going to get past there, it's going to be like through some sort of winning them over, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that even if the gatekeeper is, because I'll have some people who are not buying into me, and I'm like, ooh, they are not having Lori today, which is fine. And you can start to read that quickly. And then you can look at an education piece. So every single provider is looking for some sort of continuing education or educational piece that you should bring value to. So no matter if you're there to build a relationship, how are you building that relationship? You should have a key goal when going into an account, whether it is either to learn about each one of the roles inside of the account, or to, in this case, let's say it's an educational piece, because you can always extend that as a value add to any account. What are they looking for in education? Or what is something that, one thing that a gatekeeper will always be, is they're the ones who are answering the phones, and they're the ones that are either referring out the clients or they're scheduling their clients. And so that would be a great way. Someone always wants to talk about themselves as well. And so obviously, right? So
Obviously.
I always ask, what is one thing, they'll tell you about their job, like how many calls do you refer out during the day, or how many appointments do you think you schedule per day? And then what is the one like treatment, in my case, because it's devices and it's aesthetics, there's the one thing I can ask, like, what is one treatment you wish you could offer here? And it engages them into a conversation. And whether that conversation gets you past the front, or with a lunch, or with a, I actually don't believe in lunches, but I believe in actually sitting down and having a conversation with the decision maker, because then that's where you can find the value for your own company.
I love that. And there's different technique strategies, whatever you want to call it, technique strategies. At the end of the day, it's all about building relationships and building rapport, right? And I feel like if they feel like you're like paying them to like be friends with you, it's almost like paying a friend. Hey, friend, can you be friends with me? Here's $100. It doesn't
Sure.
really work that way, right? So
Sometimes it does, Vida.
Sorry, guys. I didn't pay Lori to be on this show. She wants to be on this show for me, right?
Oh, this is awesome. Yes.
I'll write you a check later, Lori. But anyways, the point here, the point here is this, guys. Like, people don't want to be, basically, you cannot buy people's love. Period. Right? You
Correct.
cannot buy anybody's love. And apply this to your personal life. You cannot buy people's love, because for
True.
me, love should be unconditional. Same thing
True.
about relationships at work, your partnerships. I call it partnership because it should be a partnership, right?
Definitely.
So let's talk about that for a second. I think that partnership is such a key term here, because when I first became a med device rep, I felt so much as if I was an outsider. And my whole goal was like, how do I become a part of the team? And I remember it's kind of like walking into, remember like going into your first day at school, to where like, who is this girl? What is she doing here? That's exactly how I felt. And it's the worst feeling, because it's almost like it makes you feel like you're being judged. Everybody's looking at you. Everybody's judging you. Everybody's waiting for you to make a mistake. And then, you said this versus this. And you know what happens when Gaida gets called out? Her accent gets thicker. She gets shy, and that was my first day. So I really had to learn how to pivot. I really had to figure out a way to build a partnership which equates to a relationship. So Lori, walk us through the first day you became a rep. Like, how was that for you?
Wow. Here at Candela, or
like ever, like first day at school, ever.
Ever.
Yeah.
So I think that the first day I became a rep ever was at when I was a producer with Brown & Brown Commercial Insurance. And it was the first time that I was at a real large corporation, and where our offices were up on the 16th floor, and it was very much an old school boys club, if you will. And it was some parts were a little bit shocking, and some parts were like a breath of fresh air, kind of navigating who's who within the office. And then that is also the first experience that I had of Mean Girls. And I was I honestly, it was so abrasive that I started laughing because I walked into the conference room, and there's this huge, intimidating conference room table, and I would say that 90% of it is filled with men. And then there is a couple women, and so I went to sit down next to one of the gals, and she totally turned her chair so the back was like flat. I'm like, well, hello.
Oh, hey.
So
Yeah.
this seat's not taken. So one of my giftings, I feel like, is I'm not very I'm not threatened by authority in the sense of like celebrity, or if someone's famous or someone has a high position within a company. For some reason, that doesn't affect me. And so I went and sat down, unbeknownst to me at the time, but to Charlie Lidecker, who was the VP of all sales, and he happened to be in the Phoenix office that day. And I think because I didn't have any sort of who he was, that I just struck up a conversation. And I think that's like when you're the new kid on the block, you're the one that has to start the conversation. People are not going to come to you, because truly, like, the new kid on the block is kind of like the new threat in an office, if you will. And it doesn't, like, I think on Device Diaries, Gaida, like, I think we have to be very transparent about being females within the industry and not like discounting that one way or another, because it is something that is either a detriment, or I believe wholeheartedly that it's an asset for us.
Yeah.
Because we are by nature, women are conversationalists. They can be, but they have more of a warm, caring, nurturing disposition to them that actually most people will open up to. And so little by little, little miss, I'm going to swing my chair around and ignore you like you didn't walk into the room. That it's still like just getting to know her, and not carrying that grudge around, but really seeing it through the lens of, I guess she sees me as a threat, because that truly is what it is, right? Anyone who is new, anyone who brings talent, anyone who brings their own vibe to a new territory is going to be a little bit of a threat to someone who doesn't have the full self-confidence. And I think that sometimes too, when you're not confident, and let's say you are a introvert, you have to, if you're in sales, you most likely are not an introvert, but you have to fake it until you make it. And that, because it's all about connection, and connection comes through conversation. So if that's something that you're not really great at, become great at it. I mean, we have ChatGPT, we have technology at our fingertips today, where you can literally, before you walk into an office or a new office, hey, ChatGPT, give me 3 good questions that I could ask this gatekeeper. And if they stonewall me, what should I say? And so I think I think there's a little bit of, you have to be on your game the first day anywhere. And then if you want to be taken seriously, like not everybody is going to jive with your personality, but it's where your intelligence and your knowledge set, you have to engage that. You have to be sharpening your own saw every day.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that last thing that you mentioned. Really, really, I felt it in my heart, because for the longest time, I tell people this. I'm like, you are responsible for your own education. Okay. Yes, you're gonna have
Mhm.
sales training. Yes, it doesn't matter what avenue. Yes, device diaries all about navigating the world of med device sales. But at the end of the day, sales is sales. And guess what?
Mhm.
Guide us rebranding and guide us bring on people in different sales positions. It doesn't have to be medical sales completely, because I
Right. It
really
doesn't.
want you guys to understand the mindset and the grind that it takes when you're in different industries. So going back to what Lori said about, like, you got to be sharpening that knife every day, you guys.
Mhm.
I cannot tell you how many people will come up to me and say, Gaida, it's just training socks. It's just, I'm like, you know what? When I first got started, nobody trained me. You know what I did?
Mhm.
I went to YouTube. I studied on my own. And that's what got me started, because unfortunately I was in an industry that to where my boss didn't believe in training at that time. To where it's like, oh yeah, let's just throw in your case. You got this. The surgeon knows what they're doing. It really put me in. I don't wish this upon anyone. Literally, you name it. Every single thing, every single bad thing that can happen to a rep happened to me. And what did that teach me? What did that teach me? It taught me that I promised myself, Gaida, this will never happen again. So what
There
did
you
I
go.
do? Right? I could not, like, there's can't be a part two of this. Part one is great, learning lesson. Part two, no way in hell. So what did I do? So I promised myself that I was going to educate myself. I promised myself that I was going to do whatever it takes beyond what the sales training provides, beyond what my manager, beyond what everybody teaches me provides. And I would listen. I would take hours and hours of my time on the weekends and outside of my work hours to listen to podcasts teaching me about what I sell, you guys. And if
So
you're not
smart.
doing that now, it's an investment, right? If you're not doing that now, it takes 3 months. So it takes, for me, it took me 3 months to learn everything that I needed to learn about my device. But I did spend a lot of time on it. Okay. And meaning, like, when I'm driving to an account, and sometimes it's 2 hour, 3 hour drive, I would listen to podcasts. I would listen to doctors speaking about my device, because what does that do? It allows you to sound like them. Okay. Okay,
Definitely.
what peer to peer? Let's talk about that, Lori. Why is it important? It goes back to partnership, right? Why is it
Yes.
important for let's say somebody that we're trying to sell to, whatever that
Sure.
person is, to for us to sound like them?
So this is where this was a pivotal point in my career here at Candela, is where I had been hired in November, and then we had a change in leadership where I was able to have Dan Vigil be my director, and he sat down with me and said, "Okay, let's go over the absorption chart." And I'm like, "The what? Like, what are we talking about?" And then he could see, like, one, he could see I was a deer in headlights, knew nothing about our devices. And then two, like, he had done that for himself when he came on at Candelas, because he came in from Intel, which we know is software technology. So he knew nothing about lasers. But he did, just like you, he educated himself on everything laser physics. And now he's able to pay that forward in knowledge, where that is the game changer for me in my sales strategy. I can either meet with a med spa owner who doesn't honestly care about the absorption chart. They just want to know how they're going to make the most money, to a dermatologist like Dr. Brimhall down in Draper, Utah at Sage, that she is a dermatologist, Harvard trained. And if I say one thing wrong, I've lost all credibility, right? So I have to be well versed, and well versed means repetition for me. And so that's one of the gifts that I have here. Now Dan and his gifting of education, he's now earned himself the global educator here at Candela. But I feel like that was such a pivotal moment for me, because I got somebody who really cared about the education piece of lasers and how it affects skin and the treatments, and creating either adverse events or a safer practice. What is really funny to me is when you said you begin to sound like them. So Dan literally, he talks about our PicoA, which is truly one of my favorite devices. It is known for tattoo removal, and he'll tell you it's like a plasma ball that is bursting below the dermis, and it is scattering all this but he says it just like that, and you are totally engaged, and he's not being facetious, or he's not putting on a show. It's truly his his knowledge set coming out and being like, "Can you believe this is happening with our laser?" And it's photo acoustic. He just, so when my prospects will hear me talk about our technology, and then they want to talk to Dan, who's our global educator, because I believe in, like, it can't just be all me, especially when somebody is making a capital device investment. It can be all me, but some people really want that reassurance. So I'll bring Dan in, and it's like verbatim, like about that plasma ball bursting below the dermis. Like,
That's
like
passion.
you tell that I was trained by Dan, and which is like, to me, education and the knowledge base that I have in lasers, that is game changing in my industry, because there is so much science in my industry that I'm not going to let somebody outknow me.
Ooh, I love that too. Oh my gosh, you guys, I got goosebumps for what she said. And you know what? And it's you guys, for those of you who are seasoned, brand new med device sales reps. Let's even take the med device out of the equation. Don't be that person. And for me, like I'm seasoned, Laura's seasoned, right? We've been doing this for a while, but we're all about learning. And for me, I'm
Mhm.
like, teach me your strategies. I would have calls with my colleagues. I'm like, hey, what are you doing different? Why are you getting these results? Don't be one of those people who's like, I'm so good, whatever, I know what I'm doing, nor I'm not willing to
Right.
share what works for me. For the longest my whole life, all I've done is like, hey, I landed this deal because I did this. Let me share this with you.
Yes.
And sharing is caring for a reason, you guys. And I think like what makes you unique and what makes you here's the thing, and I say this with love, okay? I'm not trying to be mean, but every year technology changes. I talk about we started from MapQuest, now we have freaking
Isn't that
Waze,
crazy?
right? Literally,
Yes.
things changed, you guys. Meaning strategies change, okay? And if
Mhm.
you're one of those MapQuest people, like my MapQuest works forever, and I'm not willing to do the Waze thing, well, you're gonna be lost and you're going to be buried in the sand, and good luck to you, because it's just a matter of time for that to not work. We're talking about AIs, we're talking about chat GPTs, we're talking about robots in the future, okay? And for you to keep your job, you have to be able to understand the future and to be able to adapt or share your knowledge with people. And when we talk
Definitely.
about strategic sales partnerships, going back to the title of this episode, is not just about your customers, it's also about your colleagues, it's also about the people that you care for. Like I would share ideas to my friends even though they're not in my industry, of like what things that work for me. When we talk about how to land the right fit for success, right? I know that is such a broad term, how to land the right fit for success. Well, it starts with you not being selfish. It starts with you being open to learning and to teaching people on how to everything that you've learned in life. And for me, for the longest time, ever since I was born, ever since I was a little kid, I ask a lot of questions. So it starts with asking a lot of questions. Like,
Yes.
hey,
Curiosity.
yes, curiosity is so freaking huge, you guys. And it doesn't matter, it worked yesterday, it doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow. So you
True.
have to be open to change. So let's talk about that, Lori. Let's talk about like the pivotal time in your life to where you're like, oh, shoot, that strategy didn't work this time.
Sure. So I think that a pivotal time for probably all of us was during COVID, and
Yeah.
right before COVID, I worked for Mirror Dry, which was probably
Mhm.
has laid the best foundation for me for sales with my mentor, Kurt Gunnis there. And then we also had another one. It was right as we were leaving. I shouldn't say leaving. None of us knew we were leaving. But when it was opening up, COVID had just started coming on the scene. And we were studying the consumer, not necessarily our customer, but the consumer that was going to seek their treatments. And I think that's the most important thing in today's whatever type of sales, that you have to understand their buying behaviors. So, like, we know that a millennial is completely different than a baby boomer, and why? Because their money, they are not investing like a baby boomer used to. Their money is much more they're open to having rent. They're open to not having a car, but that they invest in, because there's so many other avenues, whether it be Uber, whether it be public transportation, whether it be more something that gives them a better carbon footprint. but their buying is also very research driven. And that's what I see completely different prior COVID to post COVID, is that my buyer is very educated, and my buyer is much more willing to take a risk in today's climate without really, because we've acclimated to where, like, I love Sarah Blakely, that she's the founder of Spanx, and they would sit around their family dinner room table and say, what did you fail at today? And I thought, wow, what a great, like get it off the table,
Right.
because it was a fail forward. And so you can see her, like, obviously failing forward into the billionaire bracket. But I think too, like, we have a lot more of millennials, and now what, Gen Zers, and then the alphas. I think my daughter is considered an alpha. She's about ready to turn 9. But it's really their mindset and their buying habits and their buying behavior that we need to understand, so that we are becoming, like, we know millennials are a much more, they'll take self-care much more seriously. One, because the technology is at their fingertips now, and there's better science where they can actually look their age probably forever.
Yeah.
you know and there's just so much more knowledge at our fingertips, that I'll say thank you, COVID, for that. And I have many thank yous from COVID, because that's how I met Gaida. Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's pretty cool, right? But it did really, if you took advantage of that time of education, that's also where millennials really grasped. And what I see now as millennials being the entrepreneurs that they are, I'll take Stephanie Ritter and her husband Tony up in Boise, Idaho. They own Chariot Tattoo and microblading, and she brought on the peak away for tattoo removal.
That's awesome.
Which is kind of like an oxymoron, right? However, she had done her research prior to even our call, and she knew that she wanted the peak away because it was by far the best known for being a true pico to remove a tattoo. And so it was like going through the technology was a breeze with her. And so that's what I'm finding really on my end with capital sales, is that my buyer is much more educated.
I love that. And I love that you say that. I love that you mentioned that. And that's like the baby of COVID. I call it the baby COVID, right? Of
Yeah,
like people kind of are sitting in their computers doing their own research because there's no other access. They had to, right? We were forced to. We're almost forced to think outside of the box. And it's
definitely.
crazy that you said that, because COVID actually changed my life. Okay. COVID allowed me to create platforms like LinkedIn and the Device Diaries, because I had to think outside of the box. COVID actually landed me my dream job because I had to think outside of the box. So for you guys, because I did my research, I had to learn it. It's almost like you don't have a choice. Everything's shut down. What do you do with your time? Okay. So going back to really understanding, I mean, educating yourself, and a lot of our buyers now are so well educated about all of the products that you are selling. But here's the caveat, though, you guys. I feel like a lot of times salespeople do this, and I'm gonna call you guys out because it is Device Diaries. Guida likes to call people out. Okay, salespeople, please, 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 if I can give you guys a strategic sales partnership, don't talk your customers out of the actual sale. A lot of times, the smartest customer that comes to you, they already want your stuff. Don't ask them too many questions where, why do you really want this? Why? I'm like, don't do that. That's like sales 101. Let's talk about that, Laura, because I feel like I've had people like, well, you want all of it? Well, how about I give you one right now just to try it? I'm like, I said I want all of it. No, I don't think you're serious. I mean, that's stupid. Let's talk about that for a second, Laura. I'm sure you've encountered people like that. So I'm like, oh, you obviously haven't gone enough training.
I think really understanding your buyer is
Mhm.
paramount. It's key. And I think I now, because that has been so ingrained into me with my prior mentorship at Mirrored Right, it's
Mhm.
part of my discovery call. It's part of getting to know how they make a decision. It's part of what's their end game here, like the reasons. And I really write down notes, copious
Mhm.
notes, really in the beginning, because it really tells me a lot about my buyer.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting because I could give you a case in point of an account, a big account that I just lost. And his number one, so he is a plastic surgeon, and his number one consumer ask is for ablative or invasive technology that will change the texture of their client's face.
Mhm.
And that was his number one from our very first call.
Mhm.
As we understood and uncovered what his budget looked like, our devices would fit really nicely into his ask. But the one thing that we could not offer, because Candela does not offer an ablative nor an invasive laser, we
Mhm.
couldn't offer him that. And I lost the sale. I
Yeah.
worked so hard on
Mhm.
that sale. And it was very interesting to me. And this is where this will become a real diary piece for us today,
Yeah.
is that our company was trying to tell him that the consumers are wanting a non-ablative approach. We were not listening to what his ask was. Is
Yep.
I am asked, because he's a plastic surgeon, remember, not a med spa. He told me in the discovery call, my number one need is an ablative approach. And I just think, like, I was more crying than laughing, but now that I think back on it, like, you cannot tell your buyer what they're looking for.
Mhm.
Like, you need to listen, and then you need to meet their expectations and gain their trust. That to me is, if you'll find this as you have a career in sales, is that when you go to buy something, you'll engage or you'll not engage with another salesperson that is not listening to you.
Oh my God. Ain't that the truth? And I have stories like that too, to where I'm just like kind of like really trying really hard, but it's like the one thing your device doesn't do is this. I said, but how about this? How about this? How about this? And I even had situations where it's literally the font. The
Yes.
font size is not big enough, Gaida. I said, oh, well, yeah, that's kind of a software issue, but what if we just have you wear glasses? Like it's like you're trying really
We'll
hard
get
to
you some
like
loopy loops.
maybe get better glasses, but you don't want to say that. But in my head, I was thinking it. But the point here is like, yes, there are really certain avatars, or certain, you have to understand your
Yes.
customers' buying patterns, or where they're at, and are they somebody that's innovative? Are there somebody that's laggers? Are there somebody that, there's a book about this, you guys, if you don't understand buying personalities, or like
Mhm.
how people buy, there's followers. Okay, there's leaders in the industry and there's followers. What does
Correct.
leaders do? The leaders were like, I'm gonna try it out, I don't know, yes, it sounds cool, let me just try it out. Followers be like, well, I want to see if it fails first before I actually follow, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
and see how it is. Think about iPhones. Think about when
Oh, I
iPhones first
know.
came out. How many, like, all of the, I mean, I'm a nerd, so I can say the word nerd. All the nerds were like in line, right? Freaking Apple Store is like dozens and dozens, and on all this older generations were like, I don't know, I'm comfortable with my flip phone. It's just, think about that for a second. And now almost everybody uses iPhone. Almost, I say almost, because not everybody is. There's still some people that are laggers, that are still kind
Stubborn.
of like, right, that's yeah, or stubborn. I mean, we call them stubborn, which is a good term. But the point here is this: you guys need to understand where it doesn't mean that you cannot advance them to the next level of buying, like as far as like the personality of buying. But yes, it is possible. It does take time. If you guys rush them, you're gonna lose the business. Period. Okay. So when we go back to strategic sales partnership and how to land the right fit for success, tip number one, you guys, know your customers. Know your customer avatar. I call them an avatar because we are all avatars, right? We
Yeah.
all buy, right? We all have certain personalities. I mean, think about yourself when you go to a store and buy a shoe. You have a very specific way of doing it. For me, I'm a researcher. I don't go to a store because I hate stores. Gotta buys online. And if it doesn't fit, I return it. A lot of times I just donate it, but if it doesn't fit, because I hate returning stuff, but it doesn't fit because that's just my avatar. So let's talk about that, Lori. Let's hone into tip number one of like really understanding your customer avatar.
So you want
And
me to go, do you
yeah,
want me to talk
can
about
you
like how I
yeah, talk
understand
about
mine?
that a little bit more? Yes.
So I color code mine. I color profile them either a red, a yellow, a blue, or a green. And a red is more or less your visionary, and the person who sees the vision, they want you to implement it. Usually they're not too caught up in the price point of things. They just want the vision and they want to make money, and they're the delegators of it. Your yellows definitely need more support. They want to be reminded how it's going to work. They want to be reminded you can do this. They need that support. They need the cheerleader to say, hey, to remind them you do have the clinical support. You do have a marketing team behind you. You do have a clinic that you have a room that could be spending, that you could have a return of $1,500 worth an hour. They need to be reminded and supported about their decision going forward and after. Like that is one part, like if I go on a tangent here, that's really hard if you don't have a team under you, but you need to be there for your account afterwards. In the device world, there's such a bad rap out there for device reps that you give them a big purchase and then you never see them again. And that to me is such a disservice to our industry, because you just have somebody that purchased something around $150,000. They still need to have that engaged support, and the consultate. Oh, you're going to have to edit this part out. The consultant
It's okay. Consult,
in
consult. I
their
can't even
for
say
the
it. I'm
after
totally
sales.
guys.
Or they need to have, let me show you how the team works. Or what I like to do with my accounts is I like to bring in peer support and match them with different other accounts that really they vibe well with. And then there's their blues. So the blues want you to know all about themselves. They want you to know how they built their business. They want to be the next KOL. They want to be the face of their practice. They are your celebrity. They are your politician. So you want to really elevate them. You really want to, and it's not a bad thing. It's one of those, it's a person who they want accolades for what they've done, for their hard work, because they worked hard. And then you have your greens, who are analytics all day long. They want to know exactly the wavelength. They want to know the numbers. They want to know how many months it's going to take to buy it off. They want to know every specific detail ad nauseum, which is great. If you can identify that very quickly, and I have buying questions that I have for each one of my accounts, and I don't like to be like sneaky about it. I like to put everything out on the table. There's a great book that's called The Speed of Trust in Business, that it's like if you were as transparent as possible, you can get to A to Z much quicker with a lot more transparency and trust between that relationship. And so if I put that out on the table and tell them, how do I fit best into achieving your goals? And what is your expectation of me as the best rep? Like, what's your definition of a really good rep? Do you want, like, some people don't want to engage with you at all. They're like, why are you here? Where other people, you'll become their best friends. And and they'll lean on you. Or you can, like, it's always a really nice thing when someone calls you for advice about something, or like, hey, how would you handle this in this situation? And then that's truly like understanding the buyer and the avatar, if you will. I really like that that word better, avatar, because it's more relevant in today's world for sure. But I think you really have to understand, and then you have to ask more and more and more questions, because truly, like at the end of the day, you want to give them the best solution for what they're looking for. And if you don't have the best solution, let them know that. Because that sometimes it's sometimes they're just shopping, and then asking what their timeline is. And I don't think it's any secret we all want the sale, right? But there's also some people that are worth not having the sale. And
Yes.
it's like, and those can be difficult to weed out. But there are some that are, I mean, I have one that definitely didn't have all the cards on the table during the sale, and now is pointing the finger that their business is not growing, but we didn't know that they had another full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, watch out for the window shoppers, you guys. I call them the window shoppers. To
Yeah.
where they're just there to ask a lot of information. And that's such a great point. I hope you guys are taking notes, and really understanding your customer avatar is huge. And I guess this leads us to number two. Lori kind of touched on this already. Transparency, okay? You
Yes.
have to be honest. Transparency is so huge when it comes to building trust. I mean, think about your own personal relationship, right? You're not going to get married unless you're transparent. You're not going to meet someone unless you're transparent, unless you're showing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's just say this. And this translates to sales as well. So not every device, as I tell this to my fellow sales reps, because like, oh my gosh, why things are gonna break, situations are going to happen to where things are going to work out. There's going to be recalls. It's just a normal part of life. But how you approach this is, first of all, don't ever lie. You have to be very, very transparent with your customers. And for me, the first thing I say, hey, I know this is not probably something that you want to hear today, but it is my job as your rep to tell you the truth. And the truth is blah, 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 blah. And of course, their faces at first is like in shock, like, you're gonna see a bunch of different reactions. And then what do you do? And then I said what I can guarantee you is this: we are working on it. This is happening. This is the time frame. You have to provide kind of like a solution for them to not like lose hope entirely. And at that time, hopefully they've built enough rapport with you, meaning partnership with you, to where they trust that things are going to work out. But the worst thing you can do is to lie to your customers, because a lot of times when they ask you a question, they already know the answer. They're just trying to catch you if you're lying or not. Going back to what Lori said about COVID, it created customers that are very informative, that knows they've done their own research, right? So you guys really need to be transparent with your customers, okay? We talk about understanding your customer avatar. We talk about transparency. Number three, let's talk about communication. Okay.
Can I say
Yes,
something, add something on with the transparency
of
and
course.
being
Yes.
truthful? So I think I'm always surrounding myself with a team that especially as the finance piece goes, because a lot of I would say probably 75% of my accounts are financing their device in one capacity or another. And I have a handful of lenders that I really rely on in order to know that my account is going to be well taken care of. And it's such a disservice. I'm experiencing this right now. Let's get back out our diaries to be like, this happens in real life, and it's very unfortunate. But I really did rely on a financier to take good care of my customer. And they were trying to find them a way in order to be able to get the device. And but they took it outside of their realm into a different realm. And it turns out that that's a fraudulent realm. Yay for us. My account trusted me in the process because I had referred her to a financier. And because I had relied my trust in there, she didn't question what was happening. And at the end of it, she was charged an exorbitant amount of money to be able to source that third party, which I was never privy to. And so that's something that it lands back on me, and I take full ownership of, because if I am entrusting my account and their very sensitive information to another party that is going to get them financing, then I need to be all the way in the know of what's going on with that financer, right? So guess what? I won't be using them again, ever. Because my trust has been eliminated. And it's very disheartening, because it only causes us, like, there's no quick fix. I don't care what it is. Like, when you're trying to look for a way in order to make a little bit more in a sell, if you're a rep or if you're in the finance industry, just stay above board. It's going to come back to bite you in the ass at one point or another. And the one thing that I worked really hard in my career is to maintain, like, white integrity. Sounds horrible, but I mean, black and white is what I mean by, like, being one that my integrity is never questioned. And unfortunately, I've been terminated because of that in previous positions years ago. But I can look at my reflection in the mirror and hold strong that I am one of integrity. And so when it comes back again, like, one, there's a little bit of fear in me, right, to do the right thing, because I'm like, I can't lose my job. But also, I have a 9-year-old little girl that is looking at me to shape her life. And not only that, but I do believe in doing the right thing. And I do believe, like, if you value that, as anyone should, as integrity in their career, and want to go the long haul in their career, that they will not only have the relationships with their account, but anyone else they fold into their circle.
Oh my gosh, you guys, mic freaking drop. You're welcome. This is why I'm so excited to have her as a co-host, because she has so much more value to bring in. And I hope you guys are taking notes, because we're just giving you guys free content here, okay? And I hope you guys are really, really understanding what we're trying to convey. And I feel like until we repeat it 3, 5, 6, 20 times, you guys are not going to get it. And I hope, and the only way you're going to get it is just write things down, okay? We just gave you guys 2 tips. So we have 3 more to go, you guys. Number 3, communication. All right, Lori, let's talk about that for a second, because I feel like a lot of people think when you talk about communication, I get to talk. Well, guess what, guys? I believe the stat says 98% of communication is actually nonverbal. And what does that mean? Communicate, a huge part. And this is actually Lori in my episode, okay? If you guys missed it in the Device Diaries, that's the title, Communication. The power of communication. Okay, so Lori, let's dive into that deeper. Why is it important when you talk about communication is to listen more versus like throwing out features and benefits?
So I actually think that I can't remember if this was after our last episode or not. But one thing that I have really done, because our general manager, John Santos, said to us in training, it was about, if you lay out your sales process and you walk your account through the sales process of what the next steps are, they feel very buttoned up and they feel very warm and they feel like you have them. And I think that that's very true. So I talked about Dan Vigil before as my director, and he was very communicative. Like, he would call maybe 2 and 3 times a day. And at first, I felt like that was a little overbearing. However, he knew exactly what challenges I was facing, knew what accounts I was working on, and I, as a rep, felt very buttoned up and felt safe, if you will. And that very much correlates, or it translates over into your accounts. So I have a device launch strategy that I put together for each one of my accounts, even before they sign paperwork, to let them know, because there's so much that goes into a device sell, not just the device, but I want to let them know, okay, so after you sign the papers, here is the expectation. You'll have a shipment delivery, you'll have an install, you'll have education, you'll have repeat education, you have my number 24/7. And I truly am very I want to be at my account's disposal. Like anytime that they have a question, I want it to be asked. So I let them know, like, open communication at any time is really great. I also put in, okay, so when you bring on a device, whether you already have one or not, you need to have a strategy in place in order to grow. And what that looks like, when you talked about earlier, Gaida, about sharing is caring, is
Mhm.
I take my best practices from each one of my med spas that is thriving in the
Mhm.
business, and I share their best practices of what I see that may be different. Like I see some that, like up in Pocatello, that they do very well with organic growth, and they do very well on their own with marketing. I see Jamie up in Great Falls. She does a phenomenal job of bringing on the best staff that offer the greatest service, and they're all very knowledgeable. And there's I could go on and on about different people that I lean on to bring my accounts the best, but it is communicating in bite sizes, and also like taking a breath, like right now, and asking, what questions do you have?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
and also, like, I think it's okay. Some people get a little bit stiff in a professional setting. I really like I like to become more of like a friendship with my accounts, to see what challenges that they're having. Even if I can't feel them, my eyes and ears are open all day long in 3 different states, talking to so many different people. You never know how the bridges can merge. Like you and I were talking about a podcast that you're doing for,
Mhm.
"Hey guys, it's Gaida," and
Yeah.
I happened to see somebody in another network that would be perfect for your show. And
Yeah.
it's like leaning into one another with business development and life development, honestly. And so I think, like, communication and like acting as if, because most of them haven't, which I'm very shocked at, is you have, well, I guess not, because the aesthetic industry is one of the fastest growing industries. So you have a lot of entrepreneurs that are launching new med spas, and a lot of them haven't had the business experience, or you have an esthetician that's straight out of school that needs their handheld on where to go to open your LLC, who's a good accountant, who's a good business attorney, because those are the foundations of a really good business. And so I ask those questions. I ask all of the questions from A to Z. Do you have it? Where's your LLC? Because that's one of the things that I've run into. Like, well, I've got to set that up. What?
Mhm. What?
No,
I
we
mean,
need it.
what?
We need to, and it's okay. Like, that's one thing. Like, I don't think that there is a perfect recipe when you're starting a business. I think you need to be very encouraging. But I do think, like, there's the foundational pieces of starting a business that are very important to convey, and to like just reiterate, like, you need to have a Secretary of State, you need to have that filed. And I actually am very stringent about this rule, is that when until they have those pieces taken care of, I don't move forward in the process.
Mhm.
Because I've gotten too many times where I get to the end line and we don't get over the line because of those little details that we're not taking care of. So, as
Mhm.
a rep and being respectful of my time and my performance to my company, is I make sure that the details are taken care of first, but I always communicate that.
Yeah, you guys. Oh my gosh, back to communication, right? All right. So I like to keep this episode obviously within the hour because I know you guys get, I know you guys. I know you guys. So what we're going to do is this. So I'm going to save you guys the last two tips in the next episode. So I'm actually going to do a part two. Lori and I are going to do a part two of the strategic sales partnerships, how to land the right fit for success. So make sure to tune in. Lori, oh my gosh, thank you for being here with me.
Very
I'm so
exciting.
excited
Thank
to
you.
have you as my co-host. You guys, thank you for joining another episode of the Device Diaries. Today's episode is episode 30. If you guys haven't heard it yet, I now have a co-host. Woohoo! She not only is the best in the best in the business, but she's also my best friend. So what
Zaida, thank
better fit
you.
is that, right? So again, thank you guys for joining today's episode 30, and we titled it Strategic Sales Partnerships, How to Land the Right Fit for Success. I appreciate you guys. Please don't forget to subscribe, hit like, and comment. If you guys want us to talk about whatever it is that you guys wanted to talk about, we are happy to. If you want to be a guest on our podcast, please DM me on LinkedIn. That'll be the best platform. Or reach out to Lori as well on LinkedIn. She's also on LinkedIn. Lori, what is your handle on LinkedIn? Can you tell everyone?
It's Lori Jolley, LORIJOLLEY. And but Guider truly is the queen bee of this, so reach out to her and she'll make sure to get you scheduled.
Yes, I appreciate you guys. Again, you guys have to be bold. You have to be strong and just be you. Thank you for joining another episode of Device Diaries. We'll see you guys next Monday. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.